Hello, D-Rock here. Welcome to the channel. I hope you all are well. Should you solo ride in the backcountry? Absolutely. Yeah. I do it all the time and I love it. So before I begin, let me just say that I'm generally talking about dual sport motorcycle riding. I don't really ride street bikes, and I currently don't ride specifically dirt bikes or motocross or anything of that nature yet. I may move into some of those styles later on, but currently I just ride dual sport motorcycles. And I love dual sport motorcycles because I love to explore. I love to get out and explore different places, travel, etc. And dual sport motorcycles allow me to do that. So not only can I ride on the asphalt pavement, I can get off-road and do some pretty intense off-road riding on dual sport motorcycles. So what I'm talking about today is pretty much just dual sport motorcycle riding, but I mean, I guess you could apply it to anything really. So I absolutely think riding solo, riding alone, deep into the backcountry is perfectly acceptable. And not only acceptable, I think you should do it. It's fantastic. It's freeing. It builds confidence. I don't know, all the things really. And I thought I'd put together a video today of some things to consider if you are planning on riding solo deep into the backcountry. So please join me, and if you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing. That helps us out tremendously. All right, so let's start. The first thing I do, it's not necessarily the first thing I do, but it's one of the things I do. Let's just put it that way. Before I go on a ride let me back up. I like to ride the dual sport motorcycles, as I explained, because I love to explore. I love to get out. My main riding environment is the desert. So I love to get deep into the desert, see what's out there. Northern Arizona, southwestern Utah, southern Nevada. There's just spider webs of roads and paths, ATV tracks, single tracks, you name it. And it's not just the desert, but it's the mountains as well. And it's just endless. I mean, you could spend the rest of your life just riding all these paths and roads and you'd never get it done. So there's always something to explore. So one of the things I do before I go on a ride is I kind of like to pick a general area where I want to ride. And this could be seasonally, you know, middle of summer. Here in southwestern Utah is triple-digit heat. It's miserable, so I head up into the mountains. In the winter, it's the low desert, you know? So I'll pick a spot and I will get on Google Earth and I'll have a look. You know, I'll move around, check things out, look for roads, look for paths, look for ATV tracks. And not only will I use Google Earth, I'll use an app called Gaia. That's Gaia. And this is a great app, and I use this on my phone, of course, so it'll work offline being like no service, and I can trace my route, or I can see my track. I can see where I am through GPS coordinates initially, but I use it all the time in conjunction with Google Earth. Now another thing I'll do, and this is actually in conjunction with the Gaia app, is I always leave a float plan. And a float plan is just, I leave my itinerary with mainly my wife Jen, if she's not riding with me. You know, I'm solo, so you generally want to let someone know where you're going, where you'll be. And it's just a good idea in case you get into an accident and injured and you don't show back up. Someone knows where you are, or a general area. Now this is really great with the Gaia app, because if I have a general idea of the area I'm going to be riding in, I can simply screenshot that and then send it to Jen. So if I do not show up at the appointed time and search and rescue needs to be called, they can get a more accurate pinpoint on where my location is. Now that's to say if I haven't activated my inReach device, which is definitely possible. So if that hasn't been activated, the inReach device, someone knows generally where I'm at, so search and rescue can go have a look. You know, it's just some things to consider. The blind corner here, and I got a convoy of side-by-sides. There he is. Okay, I think there's a couple more. Maybe I should talk about that real quick. Blind curves. Take your time around blind curves out here in the desert, or the mountains for that matter, wherever. Man, it can get real ugly real quick zipping around blind corners. So I always err on the side of caution on narrow paths with blind corners out here. There's always side-by-sides racing around out here. So the great poet Clint Eastwood said, know your limitations. And it's one thing to take into consideration when you're out here solo riding, is definitely know your limitations. There's nothing wrong with going out and challenging yourself. I do it all the time. But at some point, recognize if you are in over your head or about to get in over your head, and turn back. So that's some helpful advice there. There is absolutely nothing wrong with challenging yourself, but you just got to remember, once it goes sideways, you're in it, and you don't have a lot of resources to pull from when you're by yourself in the backcountry. So here's a little real world experience for you. Right here, a year ago, I came around that corner doing about 40, maybe 45 miles an hour. And this road's been graded a few times since then, but I came around that corner, and right up through here were deep ruts. I hit a deep rut and I crashed. And what happened next is, excuse me, during that crash, I broke my ribs on my left side and I crushed my left foot. Just as I was picking myself up off the road, a Jeep was coming from the opposite direction and he came upon me. I was hurt so bad initially, I couldn't even pick up my bike, which was an XT250. That bike weighs 290 pounds. I couldn't even budge it off the road. So he helped me pick the bike up. We moved it off the road. And right here, I sat on that old stock tank right there, and I couldn't breathe. I thought I'd punctured a lung. So just take a look. There is nothing out here, and I'm maybe 15, 20 miles from the closest town. So if I would have needed emergency help, and this guy hadn't been riding at that time, I couldn't have moved the bike, and it probably would have been really ugly because I couldn't even pick the bike up. So when you're riding solo in the backcountry, like I said, sometimes you have to learn these things the hard way. You definitely want to leave a float plan. You want to wear protective gear, and you want to have some type of communication device. If you can afford it, you definitely want to have some type of communication device. And by that, I mean like a satellite communication device, like an inReach or a Spot or something. So I'll touch back on all this stuff in a second, but I was passing through the area, so I thought I'd relate the story again. So reflecting on that crash I had, here's another thing to think about. And it's a simple saying, just don't ride faster than you can see. And pretty much what that means is, let's use my crash as an example. I was traveling too fast on terrain I was not familiar with, and by the time I realized I was in a rut, it was too late. And I hit the edge of that rut. It was a very deep rut, like we're talking like a foot deep, and the sides are dry, it's like concrete. That was it, game over. I ate it. So one thing to think about when you're out here in the backcountry and you're riding, a lot of times it's on terrain you're not familiar with. Just don't ride faster than you can see. That way you're aware, because when you get in it, you can deal with it. Very nice. This is a nice place to chill out for a few minutes and have a talk. So I'm just going to talk about a few things that I bring with me when I'm in the backcountry, and it's really in no particular order. But one of the things that I always bring is extra gas. So I like to use the MSR fuel bottles here. These work very well, and they hold 887 milliliters, 30 ounces. So I usually bring 2 or 3 of these. I also carry a roto pack sometimes, so I always bring extra gas. It's just a rule of thumb. And I always bring extra water. Like I mentioned, I ride in the desert predominantly. There's just nowhere to get water. It's the desert. So I'm going to mention this is a Nalgene bottle. If you hike or backpack, you know, typically this is what you carry. I carry hard plastic Nalgene bottles. I also carry, you know, just the squeezy plastic bottles you get at the grocery store. But I try to not carry those because when you drop the bike or run into things, they'll bust in the water. It will leak out everywhere. So I try and use hard. I prefer the Nalgene bottles over something metal, something try and keep weight conscious, but you know, a lot of times you just can't. So it's just one more thing you want to consider, especially if you're riding in the desert, is what you're carrying your water and your gas in. So there's lots of sharp things in the desert, not just the rocks, but things that'll puncture bladders. And I carry water bladders too. I just I'll carry those in the panniers, of course, but sometimes there's just no way around it. But if I'm out for the day or just one night or something, I'll try and carry water where it's, you know, if I hit something, it's not going to leak everywhere, because once it warms up, you definitely want your water. You're going to need it. Now I want to talk about protection. That's right. And this is also something that is always evolving with me. I'm just trying to find different products and things that'll work better for me. So I'm just going to show some things that I carry and I wear that maybe you'll consider. One thing that I should also mention is that I always carry extra straps, because you just never know when you need to take off a jacket or a piece of gear or something, and you need to strap it to the bike. So it's always good just to have a few extra bungees stashed somewhere on the bike. If you've got panniers and tank bags and stuff like that on your bike, then finding space for just a couple straps is not a big deal at all. So in regards to protection, spend as much money as you can on your protection. Quality protection does not come cheap. So I wanted to show you the boot I ride in. Now, all the time, this is the Garnier SG12. Now, let me refer back to the crash I recently talked about. I mentioned I crushed my foot. I was not wearing the SG12s when I got into that crash, and I was wearing Alpine Stars Dry Star Corzal boots. Now, the problem with a lot of adventure style boots is that they just don't offer much protection. Yeah, they're comfortable, very comfortable, but protection wise, no, they're worthless. And one thing I'll mention is with the Garniers, for example, you've got this hard plastic upper here. This is very important because this is where, when I got into my wreck, I was wearing the Alpine Stars boots, and this whole part of my foot got crushed on a bike, and I couldn't even put a shoe on for probably, it was close to 3 weeks. So with the Garniers, it offers you some crush protection, much more so than what I was wearing. One thing I'll say about the Garniers is they are not waterproof, and when it gets cold, they are not warm. But I wear them anyway because they offer excellent protection. Since I bought the Garnier SG12s, they have recently come out with the SG22s, and they offer the same amount of protection. I don't have any experience with them, but what I've seen and the reviews I have watched, they get really good reviews. So these aren't the only boots that offer this much protection as far as stiffness and just everything all around. I think City offers something. There's some choices out there, but Garnier SG12s were like the standard for a while, and this is just all I'll wear now. Even if I'm just riding down the highway, I still wear the Garnier SG12s. I just want as much protection as I can all through this area. The Garniers have definitely saved my bacon more than once, and I probably would have had a broken ankle by now from a couple spills I've had with bikes. So they've definitely proven themselves, and it's just all I'll wear. Are they comfortable? Nah, not really. Can you walk in them? Nope. It's hard to shift in them, but sometimes it's just the peace of mind knowing that you've got that excellent protection. And they weren't cheap. I think they were $600, maybe $700. I think they're between $600 and $700 for the pair, but you need to take this in consideration when you spend money on protection. For example, after I got in my crash, I was out of work for a month. I couldn't work. So I missed a few paychecks, and that was definitely a lot more than what it would have cost to buy a pair of boots. Now, as far as pants and jackets, whew, boy, I mean, there's lots of choices out there. But one thing that I struggle with is what I'll ride while I'm out on the pavement needs to change when I get out on the dirt. So what I've come up with, for the time being anyway, is while I'm riding on the pavement at higher speeds, and I'm kind of more inclined if I get into a crash of sliding, I want, you know, the textile jackets and pants, of course. When I get out on the dirt, I'll switch out of that jacket, and because I'm generally riding slower speeds and working harder while I'm in the dirt, I warm up a lot more, and just jackets and wearing things under jackets, over jackets, you just heat up really quick. So another thing I've done is, this is a tech vest, and this offers protection all throughout your torso and your ribs. Offers great rib protection. So I got into that after I broke my ribs. I did a lot of research, and is it ideal? Not really. It's hot. I've worn it over jackets and it sucks. It just does. Now, I mean, when it's cold, yeah, that's a good idea, but as soon as it warms up, it just gets so hot. So what I do is, when I get off on the dirt, I'll bring a jersey like this, and then I'll wear the tech vest, and it also has shoulder pads that comes with it. And then I also switch to some elbow pads, and that's worked out well. It's kept me a lot more comfortable, and it offers me a really good degree of protection. Now, if I were to be wearing that same, that particular gear out on the asphalt, and I got into a wreck and I slid on the asphalt, yeah, it's not going to be a good thing. It's not going to protect me like a jacket will. So this is an ongoing thing, but you know, you need to take your protection very seriously when you're riding, not just when you're riding anytime, but even more so when you're by yourself. Heading out into the backcountry, you want to be protected. I understand. I wish I was that guy. You all seen him. You've all seen that guy or gal riding through town in a tank top, shorts, sandals, no helmet, no gloves, no nothing. Man, I wish I could do that, but I cannot. So, you know, sometimes the stuff that you wear is not supposed to be comfortable physically. It's just supposed to be comfortable mentally, you know, knowing that you've got some protection. But yeah, don't skimp on your protection. Spend as much money as you can, and there's lots of choices out there, so it can be difficult nailing something down. Like I said, it's a constantly evolving process with me in trying to find the perfect setup. But I'll wear, like, this is a heavier jacket, I'll bring a lighter jacket, and I'll just bring two jackets. So, you know, if it gets hot, I'll switch out to a different jacket. I mean, I just carry extra stuff. So that's one thing to consider also. One thing I'll also mention, when you buy jackets or pants, a lot of times they come with level 1 armor. You're gonna wanna put level 2 armor in. You just are. It's gonna offer you better protection. And with jackets, a lot of times they don't even come with the back armor. So, like I say, don't skimp on protection. And it's expensive, I know, but it's worth it. It saved me more than once, because I wear all the gear all the time, and it's the truth. And what I usually do is I spend the extra money and put in level 2 armor in the pants or the jackets. So it's just something that you really need to take into consideration if you're going to ride, that sooner or later you're going to crash, and you know, the the protective gear mitigates those injuries. Now, another thing you'll want to consider carrying with you at all times on the bike is a first aid kit. So what I do is on my tank bag, as you can see here, whatever bike I'm riding generally has a tank bag. I have a tourniquet staged. And by staged, I mean it's not in a wrapper. All I got to do is unzip it, pull this top down, and I've got easy access to a tourniquet. I just pull it out, slap it on if I need to on my arm or my leg. As well as the stage tourniquet, I've got an IFAK, which is an individual first aid kit. You can build these yourself. I highly suggest you do, because a lot of times the ones you buy just, you know, they've got like a couple band-aids and some ibuprofen in it, so you need to have a look at what's inside them. This kit is specifically for bleeding for the most part. So I also have another tourniquet staged inside this kit. I've got like Israeli tourniquets, not just the cat, quick clot, plenty of quick clot, gauze, scissors to cut, all these things to help with to stop bleeding. Also got a splint in here, and I've got a CPR mask. So I don't have that as accessible as the tourniquet on the tank bag. It's just in my pannier. But it's a good idea to carry those things, because you get into a wreck, you're going to break things, or you're going to get punctured by something or cut out here in the backcountry. So you just need to consider bleeding is going to be probably one of the main things that can happen, aside from like a bone break. So yeah, that's a few things that I have staged and somewhat readily available on the bike that I can get to. Now here's a look at some other things. In the small waterproof bag, I carry like a much smaller first aid kit. It's got like some hand warmers, some iodine swabs, some regular band-aids, moleskin, stuff like that. I also carry insect repellent. Yes, I know. Let me tell you something, and I've mentioned this in lots of videos. When I'm out in the desert, as soon as it warms up, for a good portion of it's definitely in the spring into the summer, cedar gnats. Horrible, man, absolutely horrible. And of course you get in the mountains, you got the mosquitoes and stuff. You know, you get stranded or something and you're out there, you're getting chewed up by the bugs. I always carry a small thing of insect repellent, some tape, and of course toilet paper, sunscreen, stuff like that. It really doesn't take up too much space, and it's just worth it to have. So I've been an outdoor enthusiast my entire life, whether that be out on the boat or climbing mountains, descending canyons, rock climbing, all these things. And there's a term that we like to use, it's called self-rescue. So whenever I'm doing things outdoors away from help, I consider things that will self-rescue. So, you know, these are some of the things that I think about while I'm out on the motorcycle in the backcountry by myself. What would I need if I get myself in trouble? And that's kind of generally what I mean by it's kind of always evolving, because I'm thinking about things, and I'm also trying to be weight conscious, because, you know, backpacking, you're carrying everything on you, and on a motorcycle you need to be weight conscious as well. So I try and think about a lot of things. True, some of them are heavier than others, but it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So that being said, let's look at some electronics here. Of course, we all got our phone. Now, this is a very important device here, and I encourage, if you're going to ride solo in the backcountry, to spend the money and get a satellite communication device such as this. This is an Garmin InReach Explorer. Now, this is a larger size. It comes in a smaller size like that as well. They also have things called like the Spot. And the biggest issue I have with this device here is where exactly to put it. Now, I've seen people with the smaller device, about half this size, with a carabiner, and they have it like attached to their gear somewhere, or their waist or their jacket or something. That's no bueno. I know from from crashing myself. You're gonna roll, you're gonna get ejected, the bike can come down top of you, and you're gonna crush that device. So if you're by yourself, you need to have this somewhere where it's somewhat protected. I've also seen people with it clipped into their handlebars, and once again, it's going to smack. You run the chance of damaging the device. You also want it accessible, so you are away from your bike. You need to get to the device. I mean, you can't cover everything. You know, you have to. Things happen, but what I do is I just keep it wrapped up fairly well in something like this, and I just keep it in the tank bag. So thus far in my experiences in the crashes I've experienced, the contents in the tank bag have usually weathered the crash pretty well. So that's where I keep the communication devices, wrapped up in the tank bag. Now, one more thing that I carry is a spare battery charger, and I don't always carry this when I'm out in the backcountry, but if I'm doing moto camping or going on far trips, I will bring this. And what I can do is, if, for example, my phone or the inReach device is dead, I can charge it back up. And I just simply carry a cord that I can charge batteries, I can charge the phone, everything like that. So this isn't very big at all. As you can see, it's about the size of my phone, maybe a little smaller, and I can charge multiple things with this, and this works out really well. So this is an ideal thing to bring with you as well. They say this can charge with solar. Don't believe that. It'd take hours and hours and days to charge this thing up solar. So I just make sure it's charged up before I leave, and that's my electronic devices that I carry. And finally, on the tail, I'll carry all the gear I need to deal with flat tires. So I got the tubes in there. I'm not gonna pull everything apart, but I've got a toolkit, tubes, all that gear that I need to deal with repairs on the bike, flat tire fixes, stuff like that. So that's kind of the gist of it. Like I mentioned at the beginning, this is kind of geared toward dual sport motorcycle riding, solo dual sport motorcycle riding in the backcountry. And I carry all this stuff with the simple thought of being able to self-rescue. So if I get into a situation, so if I get injured, I can call for help. If I get a flat tire, I can fix the tire. If I get cut, I can stop the bleeding. I run out of gas, I have gas, I have plenty of water, I always bring food, all these things. So some things to consider, and hopefully you found this helpful. So as always, thank you very much for watching. I got lots more content on the way. Please stay safe out there, folks. We'll see you next time. D-Rock out. Adios.